Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Liz Eggleston and I run Course Report, which is the most complete resource for students who are researching coding boot camps. And today I am really happy to be joined by Clint Schmidt, who is the CEO of Bloc. And Bloc, you've probably heard of them. They've been teaching people to code online since about 2012. And they've recently revamped their courses and launched this web developer track. And so Clint is going to join us. He's going to answer all of our questions about what a student can expect from the web developer track, the curriculum, the types of jobs that you could expect to get after you graduate. And then Clint is even going to share his screen and show us what the actual learning platform looks like. So I'm really excited to get started. So Clint, you are a co-founder at Bloc. You've been there since the beginning. Could you tell us like what your main focus is right now?
Yeah, sure. I'm the CEO at Bloc today, and I can't officially lay claim to co-founder status. However, Liz, I came on as the COO in 2014, and then took over as the CEO in 2016.
Got it.
But my main focus is charting our course for the years to come. We think this is still very much the early days of career-focused, vocational online education, and we imagine a future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what will education look like? And we think that there will be some very big potential for a Bloc-like model that is entirely remote and really focused on in-demand skills.
Absolutely. I think, there are a lot of boot camps now, kind of traditional, like in-person, in-classroom boot camps that are putting their curricula online and delivering like this like remote version of their boot camp. But Bloc was like born online. You started as an online boot camp. What kind of like advantage or maybe even like disadvantage, I don't know, you can kind of talk through it, but what kind of advantage do you think that kind of gives Bloc as an online boot camp?
Yeah, let's start with the advantages. The first is that this is not easy to do well online. There are a lot of unique characteristics to the online student experience that you just simply don't have to take into consideration when the student's in the classroom. There are many, many of them, in fact. And so to do this well for students online and to do it consistently well for students online requires a lot of infrastructure and a lot of kind of unique solutions to solve very specifically for the online student use case. The big disadvantage, so I guess the advantage there is that we've been working on those problems continuously for 5 years, and we've learned a lot about how to do it well and what not to do.
Right.
The disadvantage is, we can't make a student who's working at home in their home office or on their couch or in their grandma's basement or whatever it is, we can't make them sit down and do the work.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's on the student to commit the time. And so even if we do everything to hold the bar end of the bargain, in terms of the quality of the curriculum, the quality of the instruction, the support that we give for career services, if the student's not willing to invest the time, there's not a lot we can do. So there's a huge dependency there on the student's success on their own discipline.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about that later, but I think the big news kind of is that, in the past, Bloc has offered a web developer track and a software engineer track as two separate courses. Can you tell us about the kind of major change that's happening with those two courses?
Absolutely. We found that there is kind of something in the middle of the two that is more apt for what students need. A couple of things that we learned. We spoke with a large panel of hiring managers across the country. And what they told us is that much of what we taught in our software engineering track was kind of outside of the hard requirements for most junior web developers that they hire, and that there were bits that they wanted the junior developer to have. And so we've kind of taken their guidance to kind of reformat and restructure our program so that the web developer track has now two important changes that have been made to the curriculum. The first is that we brought some basic computer science fundamentals into the curriculum. Mm. The second is that we've brought the option for a student to complete the program with two different stacks as a possibility. They can either do it with Rails and Ruby, or they can complete the program with a focus on full stack JavaScript with Node on the back end. And so that type of flexibility lets us adapt the program to be best suited for the students' interests and the geographies in which they're looking for work. Those of us in the industry know that the market for web development is quite different in different geographies, and we want to make sure that we're offering a program that can arm and equip our students with the skills they need for the markets that they're looking at. And so we've made those two big additions to the curriculum, and there are some of the other components of our software developer track that we still believe are important. We still think that subject matter is really critical for a certain type of student goal. Mm-hmm. But we will just teach that material in separate sort of follow-on programs that students can enroll in separately after they've completed a web developer track program, or candidly, maybe after they've completed another bootcamp program elsewhere.
Cool. Okay, so since you mentioned student goals, in this new web developer track, or this kind of redesigned web developer track, what is the expected kind of student outcome? Do you expect that people will be getting, junior, like entry-level developer jobs, senior developer jobs, web developers?
It's that first job as a web developer, that entry-level job. In some cases, it's just called web developer. In some cases, it's junior web developer. In some cases, it's junior software engineer, whatever it is. It's that first job where you're getting paid to write software. That's what we're designing this program to do very explicitly. There's another specific type of student goal that we think will require additional training. And that's if you want to get a job as a software engineer at a top technology company in a major tech hub. If you want to be a software engineer at a Zendesk or a Twitter, let's say, or at an Airbnb or Dropbox, they do expect more out of those applicants for those software engineering roles than we might arm them with in a web developer track program. And so that's where that additional subject matter expertise that you would get in a second follow-on program would come from. Talk about software engineering principles, database architecture, design patterns, things like that, that they're going to expect a software engineer to possess that might not be required for somebody who's a junior web developer.
What were those CS fundamentals that you felt it was necessary to keep in the web developer track from the software engineering track?
Yeah, what we're talking about that in that case is just some basic familiarity, right? Like, do you know what an algorithm is and why it's important? Do you understand kind of the basics of client server architecture? Like some basic fundamental stuff. Basic database design. We wanted to make sure that we were arming our web developer students with some basic familiarity, so that some of these concepts were just entirely foreign to them when they leave our program.
Got it. I like that you've stepped back and listened to your hiring partners and kind of thought about that first job that a student is going to get after Bloc, and kind of reconfigured the curriculum to match that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about the time commitment that you're expecting for the web developer track? Is it still similar, or what can someone expect? Can they have a job at the same time? Yeah.
Great question. That's actually a big improvement for our programs now. Is in the past, we kind of had these predetermined lengths of time that the program would take based on the amount of time that the student was spending. And now we've made the duration of the program much more malleable, that can conform to students' changing schedules at times. I'll give a perfect example of a student we've had who is a teacher. And during the summertime, they want to go faster and they want to do more because they don't have a class to go to every day. During holiday breaks, they want to go faster, but during the normal school year, they want to compress the amount of time that they spend on their block program down to 15 hours or so. And so now our programs are better suited for that type of flexibility. You can basically take as long in the program as you need, with a maximum cap on the total amount of tuition that you'll ever pay in the program. At $15,000 is the most. But if you want to go faster and you want to commit 40 or 50 hours a week to the program, you can finish in just a few months.
Cool.
And pay as little as $4,500, let's say, in the program. And we've got monthly payments that are better suited for those folks.
Interesting. I think when we think about like online options, there's kind of this like instructor-led model and then this mentor-led model. Would you say that Bloc kind of ascribes to that mentor-led model? You're assigned a mentor and they kind of guide you through the curriculum?
Yeah, I'll point to a couple of different formats there, because I think ours is different still than either of those. The first is this classroom model, virtual classroom, where you're part of a cohort. You can virtually raise your hand and you have to be in front of your computer during predefined number of hours as though you were in the classroom. That's not the Bloc model. There's a second that is effectively mentorship as a service, where you have mentor meetings, and to the extent that you get instruction and you get help, you get them during those mentor meetings. That's where our legacy is, but that's not our model with the new program. We've been doing this for a long time. I mentioned that there are some unique problems for the online student experience that we've been working on for many years. And we've learned a couple things. First, we've learned that mentorship is really important, to have that subject matter expert that you can go to when you need a deeper explanation of a specific topic, or you just need to be held accountable to making a certain amount of progress through. Someone that you can establish that human connection with to guide you. But the second thing we've learned, and this is really important, is that students often need a lot more support at odd hours and times than a few mentor meetings per week can provide. And so that's a big part of the revamp of our web developer track program. Is now there is a kind of the myriad of different ways in which we can support students. There's still a required meeting with a mentor, of course. We know that's important, but now there are 80 hours a week of time where you've got mentors standing by to answer your questions in real time.
Got it.
We've got group sessions where we can go deep into specific subject matter areas where we know students often need to have that synchronous time in more copious amounts. And we've enriched our career services so that we start patterning the students' thinking earlier on in the program to prepare them for their first technical recruiting process at the end. And so we kind of have this idea of kind of a more a broader array of different ways in which to serve the student in a variety of different capacities that we think is superior to just a couple of mentor meetings each week.
Cool. Yeah, I think you also touched on this, but having that mentor, working with like a mentor and having the community of mentors makes it like flexibility even possible, right?
That's right.
That's cool.
That's right. It's helpful also to have a critical mass of students, to be able to do this at scale is another special challenge. And so we can offer group sessions knowing that you're going to have a critical mass of students to be there to fill them in. We can offer 80 hours of real-time support from mentors, knowing that there's enough students there that it makes sense for us to do that.
Yeah, because how many students do y'all have now at Bloc?
Yeah, we have over 1,000 students that are concurrently enrolled right now, and that number is growing.
That's amazing. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so then for future students, our course report readers and viewers, can you take us through the Bloc platform and the type of learning platform that a student would be using?
Yeah, sure. I can share my screen. Figure out how to do that.
That little green button in the...
Yeah. Okay, can you see?
Yep.
You see the Bloc web developer?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay. So just to give you a better depiction of this type of broader 360 degree support that we provide, you can see first thing is that you've got a lot of different ways in which you can get the help that you need. The first is if you've got a question right now about your code not working or about a particular concept, you can go to Slack right now, where we have mentors standing by, as I mentioned, 80 hours a week to answer your questions in real time.
Cool.
But you also have kind of a roster of upcoming events that that you can rely on here. The first is that you might have a mentor meeting. In this case, I've got a JavaScript deep dive that I've got on the schedule coming up on Friday. And then next week, I've got another group session where I plan to join Kayla Hughes to prepare for industry meetups. And then I've got another mentor session next week. So you start to add all this up, and this is a pretty supportive fabric, I guess, that we have available to help our students. And so that way, when I get on get into my mentor session with Carrie, I don't have to spend the whole time doing a JavaScript deep dive with her, because I'm going to get that in a group session with Raj.
Got it.
Friday. And I don't have to spend a bunch of time with Carrie asking her which and how to handle industry meetups, because I've got dedicated time to talk about that with Kayla. And I don't have to wait for my mentor meeting to ask a question about how to properly merge my pull request, because I can go to Slack and I can ask that of a mentor that's standing by right now. I
love this. This is so well organized. So it looks like the curriculum is broken down into modules. And
that's right. Thanks for noticing.
So are students going through those modules essentially at their own pace, and then they're chiming in with their support group and their mentor when they need to?
That's right. So we take the flipped classroom model, that consuming the content that we have available for you is something that you can do mostly on your own and on your own time. So you're reading through each of the checkpoints, watching some of the videos that we may have embedded in there. And then at the end of each one of the checkpoints, we ask you to submit a piece of code, or in the case of our design programs, a design asset or design artifact that demonstrates your understanding and demonstrates your proficiency of the material in that checkpoint. And then that submission is reviewed by a mentor and then either approved, where we verify that you've got it right, or we push it back to you. As you can see in this screenshot, I've had 2 checkpoints that have been pushed back to me where the mentor is requiring some revisions before they will approve it.
Got it.
That's asynchronous exchange with a mentor on your code submissions. And then the synchronous time can be used for, I guess, more kind of esoteric discussion about specific concepts, like why does it work this way, or how do these concepts work together? When do I use loops and arrays and things like that? So we want to use the synchronous time with a human being for what that's best for, and then rely on technology or asynchronous correspondence for what those are best for. And we think that our student experience integrates those requirements and that sense of optimization of formats better now than it ever has.
It sounds like each of those checkpoints are assessed really well, which is nice, especially for someone who's doing an online boot camp. We were talking before about staying motivated and staying on track when you're learning online, and I think tools can help students get through that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've built over time Liz, is a pretty robust set of data. So we know when students really struggle with a specific checkpoint, we can see that and we can go and address that checkpoint and deploy changes to our curriculum or to the wording of a curriculum or to the code submission that we require at the end in those exercises. And we can deploy those real time based on data that we get from the student experience at scale. And similarly, if a student is falling behind or hasn't been active, we can see that. And if there's a chance that we can, be proactive to try to kind of assert ourselves a bit with the student and say, hey, look, is there something going on? We haven't seen you, log in, or you haven't gotten the checkpoint approved by a mentor in a while. Again, we can use data to both solve for engagement and also solve for proficiency.
I was going to ask how you support students when they're falling behind, but it sounds like you're already being very thoughtful about that.
Yeah, we've got a student success team that is really hands-on when students need a little bit of extra help or encouragement or motivation, or when they need kind of special consideration given to things that might be happening in their lives. Our team's dedicated to helping address those issues.
In addition to the assessments and checkpoints, how big of a deal are projects and portfolio building at Bloc? And are they doing projects through this platform too?
Yeah, each one of the, actually I can kind of point to one of them here. Where my mouse is kind of highlighting there, it says up next, getting started with Bloc Jams React. This is building a music app using React. And building that project for your portfolio is what the curriculum is guiding you through. So you're learning these various web development concepts while you're building a project.
Got it.
By the time you're done with a given module, you will have built a project and demonstrated your proficiency of a number of different concepts along the way.
Are students working together ever? That can be kind of a hard thing to facilitate, that collaboration.
Yeah, that is not a hard requirement because many of our students need the flexibility that being able to work fully autonomously gives them. Knowing that Bloc is there to support them at all hours is a requirement. It gets more complicated if you also have a dependency on another student's schedule in there. But what we find is that our community is really, really robust, and the students are actually doing quite a lot to help each other. We have students standing by on Slack and in our various support channels. We also have other students that are quick to help because they themselves have gotten help from their fellow student and they want to pay it forward. So you get this really supportive, kind of proactive, attentive community of fellow Bloc students that are all helping each other, with mentors also there to contribute and kind of be the final word. And out of that comes a lot of great relationships, a lot of, unplanned bespoke meetups in various cities where you've got a critical mass of Bloc students that want to get together, students and alumni. And in some cases, a lot of collaboration on separate projects. We've had Bloc students get together and launch startups after they graduated. We've seen our design students collaborate with our web development students to build projects together. A lot of that stuff is very organic that comes out of the Bloc community.
I love that. I think there are so many people, Bloc included, that are doing really interesting things to build community online, but it's always so cool to see people taking it offline organically, doing that themselves, and finding that community offline too. Very neat. Yeah. Okay, is there anything else about the platform itself that you want to make sure we know?
Yeah, there's one thing that I think really bears mention is that at the end of each module, we require a student to complete an assessment. And that assessment is provisioned by a mentor that is a subject matter expert and that is not your mentor. And that is a really helpful mechanism to make sure that our students consistently are able to demonstrate the proficiency that we require. And we simply won't allow a student to move forward to the next module unless they've passed the assessment for the preceding module. And that helps both the student and Bloc. It helps the student, of course, because it gives them the confidence to know that if there's some flaw in their understanding or some gap in their skills, we're going to catch it. And when they graduate the program, they're going to have the skills that that we know are required to be job ready. They can graduate and have the confidence knowing that they definitely have the skills. So there's no skating by at Bloc.
Is there like career kind of career curriculum built into this part of the platform, or is that?
You got it. There are technical assessments, and then there are non-technical assessments as well, and both are required. Cool. It's also helpful to Bloc too because it really helps prevent the worst case scenario as far as we're concerned, where an employer looks at a Bloc student, and if that Bloc student doesn't possess the hard skills and technical and non-technical skills that they expect, if they've been able to find a way through the program without really being able to demonstrate their proficiency in all those critical ways, then they're going to pass over that student and maybe going to discount another Bloc student that might follow. So by making sure that all of our students have that kind of verification behind their proficiency, it helps build a bit of the quality, kind of long-term quality perception of Bloc's programs and Bloc's graduates over time with hiring managers.
Wonderful. Well, okay, Clint, do you want to unshare your screen and we can, I've got just a couple more questions for you.
Sure can. Okay, let's see. Do you have it?
Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, so I think that you got to point out kind of how Bloc has built in ways to support students as they're going through the online bootcamp. But what advice do you have for students that are about to embark on an online school? Like, do you have any tips that you've learned over the last 5 years for getting the most out of it, especially if they are like career changers and they actually want to get a job when they're done?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one, I look at this as kind of risk mitigation. My tips are all about mitigating risk. The first way that this can go wrong for a Bloc student is if they really delude themselves about the amount of time that they're able to commit. People have busy lives and they've got jobs and they've got obligations, and that's probably a big part of the reason why they're looking for an online program. But they still have to have the time management discipline to allocate the required time to a program like Bloc to be successful. Simply put, you're not going to have success in a program like Bloc if you just think you're going to be able to contribute a couple hours here and a couple hours there. This is a significant commitment, and you kind of have to adapt the other things going on in your life to that time commitment to some degree. Mm-hmm. That's by far the biggest piece of advice that I would give to a Bloc student. The second is just being ready for the emotional roller coaster. This is not specific to Bloc, but learning to code is hard, and there can be these plateaus along the learning curve that can get really frustrating, and then you'll have these sort of explosions of understanding where you race up the learning curve, and those feel really good. So the emotional highs and lows that go with that, I mean, we've seen it over now literally thousands of students. We know the roller coaster exists. We do what we can to kind of smooth out the lows when we can, but they're going to be there, and so it really requires grit. You just have to keep grinding and keep trying. Ask any card-carrying software engineer out there on the planet, and they'll tell you that even today still they want to bang their head on the monitor at times when they're trying to solve a hard problem with software. So stealing our students for that emotional roller coaster before they even start is a worthy piece of advice.
Well, okay, so is the web developer track available now? Like, is that something that someone can sign up for now?
It is. We don't have any start dates available now until January 8th. Okay. So the next start date is January 8th, but yes, we're taking enrollments now, and the amount of time, as I mentioned, that it takes for a student to complete can be anywhere from a couple months if they're doing it full time to over a year if they're spending less time per week on it. We look at the bare minimum as being a 12-hour a week commitment. If you can't commit that, then you probably shouldn't.
Got it. And I probably should have asked this before the end of this Q&A, but what are the application requirements? Are you looking for people that have experience, or can you be a complete beginner, like just have a computer and a Wi-Fi connection?
Yeah, it's definitely the latter. You can get started and enroll as long as you have high-speed internet connection, a decent computer, and then we do require at least minimum fluency in English, as most of the curriculum is written in English, and the mentors are all English speakers for the most part. There are some that have multiple language skills, but those are exceptions, not the rule. And we don't have an admissions process at Bloc. We don't like to presuppose who can do this and who can't. If you look at the long list of hundreds of Bloc graduates that have gone on to get jobs, there are some that you might have scratched your chin at when they enrolled and thought, geez, I wonder if that person can do it, and they did. So we don't like to presuppose. We've got open enrollment for that reason. And if you lose your enthusiasm for it for some reason, that's fine. You can get a prorated refund. But we let anybody who wants to take a shot, take a shot.
Wonderful. Well, Clint, is there anything that we skipped over that you want to make sure our readers and course report viewers know about Bloc or the web developer track?
I would just underscore that one kind of key factor that our new web developer track is really meant to address, and that is we know how hard it can be to do this online, and we try to offer the most supportive, structured experience for students, so they're never out there roaming around frustrated without help. We want to be very attentive to their needs as they're going through a difficult journey like this. So I'd like to think of the Bloc web developer program as being the most supportive online coding program out there.
I love that. Well, Clint, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for joining us. You gave such great advice, I think, for anyone who is considering an online coding bootcamp, especially Bloc, but really anyone who's looking at an online school. It's also been really cool to see how y'all kind of build that support for your students into the learning platform. So thank you for sharing your screen and showing us that. And thank you, of course, to all of our viewers for tuning in. Let us know if you have questions. You can leave a comment just below, and you can even tell us who you want to see on our next Course Report Live Q&A. Have a good day. Bye.